I wrote this essay this week called "What Comes After Dopamine Culture," because yeah, I think we've talked about this before. I've talked about this with Noam Miljovsky when I've interviewed him.
Uh-huh.
But there is this phenomenon called we now live in dopamine culture, right? And especially this guy Ted Goya wrote this article, "How to Break Free from Dopamine Culture," and he's like a big account and a big name, and this idea is kind of like spread forth from this essay that he wrote.
Mm-hmm.
And the idea is that, like, just as the name sounds, there was like slow culture where you'd read books, listen to full albums,
Yeah.
etc. And then it started to be like, oh, you'd just like listen to tracks and then you would read shorter clips of things. And now like dopamine culture is just simply we're scrolling, we're like listening to TikToks, not even full songs anymore, let alone albums, like etc. And we're no longer like
Yeah.
it's not playing sports, it's like gambling on sports. Like it's so far
Yeah.
like removed from like the actual
You're
thing.
you're mashing
That's
the button.
dopamine culture.
Yeah.
Yeah. So like dopamine culture is bad. Like everyone agrees with this just because like I don't think there's anyone who's like, I love dopamine culture. Like it leaves you feeling empty, right? It's not a great thing. So I wrote this essay about what comes after this. And let me kind of give you my pitch and I want to get your response to this. I want to see how this hits you.
Yeah.
So dopamine culture was fully the product of technology. So in this essay, I spell out like, if we're going to talk about what comes after dopamine culture, we have to talk about technology.
Mm.
And that means taking seriously the idea of all the tech advancements that we're now like looking ahead to.
Mm-hmm.
So, playing that forward and saying that like we do create some level of AGI, et cetera, or whatever, I think that we might, and this is my argument, finally open up the very, very tippy top of Maslow's hierarchy of peak experience, where we might actually start seeking true peak experiences, because that's what we're all just kind of like hinting at, like everywhere we go in life we're always trying to kind of sort of like, this is why we have sports teams, this is why we have pro sports teams to watch them, we're trying to like vicariously have peak experiences. What if we just like actually prioritize that, and there are all these tools that now enable us to actually pursue that in a meaningful way, where we no longer have a 9 to 5 job. So if all this time, our hobbies, we no longer have this like desire to monetize them, because what's the point? We all like live on UBI anyway.
Yeah.
And AI can create all the shitty, or I mean, all the amazing art that I'm used to saying shitty AI art, all the amazing art that could dream of. So we don't need to monetize anything we create. We don't need to monetize pro sports teams anymore. We do it
Uh-huh.
just simply for that actual legit, very, very human experience of feeling beyond myself and connected to the universe that you get through a peak experience. And that could be what we, you know, finally ultimately strive for, and orient our entire lives around just that. Okay, so that's my pitch. I intentionally made it very optimistic. But what, yeah, what's your what's your thought?
I feel like that's such a beautiful working class utopian theorem. Because I feel like so many people in the working class would be absolutely thrilled to just like cast off the chains of money and like just do the things that they like to do. And then I think there's this whole subset of people in the world that really crave leverage over other people and money and kind of controlling like economies and controlling forces at scale is part of what makes those people tick. And I very much think that if there is some kind of infinite energy generation or some kind of huge wave of abundance, the thing that we're going to fight is the thing that we're fighting now, which is that there's so many people at the top of everything who's it's in their best interest to bottleneck whatever's happening so they can get a nice tight stream that never stops. And it's like we get that with technology right now, we get that with pharmaceutical stuff, we get that with all kinds of different things right now. And I think that if we do experience some huge boon, I'll be waiting to figure out, and there is access to UBI, and there is access for, you know, everybody that makes an amount of money that's meaningful. So like less than a couple $1,000,000, where money's still real and it still buys you things. But once you're in like 10, 20, 100, you know, $1 billion, money's figurative at that point. It doesn't buy you luxury anymore. It's just a lever of power. And there's a whole fucking cohort of people that run around the world, you know, trying to wrench on things with that big sack of cash. So I wonder how that plays out. I wonder how that shakes out. I wonder how the rich, you know, attempt to control and contain the happiness of the proletariat, you know, if we do have something that creates that much abundance.
It's interesting that you framed it in those terms, because I actually mentioned this in the article too, but like the vision that this comes from in part is Aaron Bastani's automated luxury communism. There's a world where Marxist framings of society start to become relevant when you do tap into ultimate abundance. We start having to talk about life in terms of communism. And like, we're so used to having in the West, like such an ick response to anything that's like communism. But yeah, like what if that is kind of like the door out for us, and that we have so much abundance that the way to pivot society is, we will reframe this. Like I actually mentioned this. So like the futurist Zoltan Istvan, who is currently running for governor in California, and I'm actually part of his campaign, full disclosure, he has referred to this idea of fully automated luxury communism. He's kind of like reframed it as automated abundance economy, a term I had a little bit of a say in actually crafting that.
That's a good little, I like that. That's a pithy little, yeah.
Yeah, isn't that good? So this is I think going to be the new term that we're kind of like get away from the idea of communism, but it's effectively the same concept.
Abundance economy.
Isn't that good? I helped coin that, so I will take a little bit of credit.
Yes, it's very literary in its affect. I love it.
So yeah, I think that might be, because here's like the caveat to all this is that we will still, assuming we're still like fully human or whatever, we're still going to seek status. So we may just not have the ability to coherently do it through money, but we will find ways to seek status in this new world. And I mean, if we're talking about, you know, we live in a world where we're drilling into like peak experience culture rather than dopamine culture, we'll seek status through like being able to achieve peak experiences or something like this. I mean, who knows? This is just like my fantasy world here, but
I love, well, it's like you took me there, and the world that I imagined immediately was like all of these people, because obviously like the easy grab is like, oh well, you know, this guy's really into rock climbing or something, and like, you know, he gets UBI and now he gets to go all over the world and climb rocks. But then you reach a little higher up in the tree, you know what I mean? And you see the person whose hobby is dominating other people. You know what I mean? Who's kind of like whole like entrenchment in reality is like controlling stuff. You know what I mean? And like those people are not going to just take their UBI and go, oh man, I actually really love skateboarding. I never realized like those people are gonna try
Devin,
to
you know what's hilarious?
steal other people's UBI. And you know what I mean? It's like there's just always gonna be, I think, people who have depraved proclivities, man.
You know what's so funny? Like, you hit the nail on the head of the ultra sensitive topic here, which is that in any utopian scenario, no one has a good idea of what to do about like psychopaths and dark triad types. You know what I mean? Like people who they get their rush out of causing harm to others or manipulating others. What do you do with those people? Like, do we have to do some sort of new you know, the modern equivalent of the lobotomy to like make it so that society doesn't get destroyed by them?
even less severe than that, just traumatized people. Like traumatized people weaving webs around each other. Like that
Mhm.
is like that's such a primary source of destruction, social destruction in society is when like people who have both been traumatized weave a tangled web around each other, you know, and it's not like having UBI is helpful, take some stress off, but you know, ain't gonna stop the cycles of life from spinning round, I think. But who knows, you know? I mean, the way that these people are talking about it is, to me, just feels divorced from reality, in the way that there's always people that are kind of like, it's gonna be tomorrow, we're gonna run out of this, or we're gonna, like, we have to think about this now. It kind of never is tomorrow, and their whole
Mhm.
vision of how it like spirals out of control, and then all of a sudden it's an army of super intelligences that I'm like, this guy, like, you grew up on comic books or something, man. Like, maybe it does work that way, maybe I'm just a rube, but it never has. Nothing has ever done anything like that before, and if it does, it will be genuinely shocking.
There are so many things that could be shocking in that respect in the next 10 years. And this is why it's so weird to be alive, because I don't think that it's ever been
So cool.
possible in the human in the here's one. Like at CERN, they just created gold out of lead. So like alchemy actually happened like this week,
Dude,
right? And
wow.
so we are living in actual weird utopian futures like right now with things like that happen. Also, we're living at a time where we have to actually take seriously the idea that we could crack aging and start to live, I don't know, an extra 50, 100 years. And that is such an insane game changer, like fundamentally a game changer, right? Then there's AI. Like all of that is happening like even without AI.
Yeah.
And then there's like energy abundance. What if we do just like get nuclear fusion to work? Okay, that's another one of these scenarios where like energy's free and abundant. That opens up all kinds of like we're
That'll
at this
change
weird
everything.
point in history where any given one of these would just fundamentally shift our actual daily lives, like, right? Like it's weird. Like it's a very strange time to be alive.
It's like I've thought this for so long, man, and I've said it on this podcast so many times, but there's all kinds of like interpersonal strife that will never go away, but geopolitical strife, in my humble esteem, is entirely energy related, like, period, because there is no resource not available to someone with infinite energy to do it. It's just that certain things that would be necessary to transform a desert into an oasis are too energy intensive, just can't happen because of energy constraints. And man, the world would change overnight if energy became cheaper or free or easier to
Imagine the
get.
Gulf Coast if tomorrow we woke up and we just didn't need oil anymore.
Dude,
Imagine.
it would be crazy, but then it would be so crazy also to watch all of those people scramble for
Mhm.
reigns of power. And you know, it's like it's dangerous to take people's toys away, man. Like when people become powerful and have their fingers into all kinds of different edges of society and controlling these broad swaths of human experience, it's like they get addicted to that, you know?
Oh, I meant that as a kind of doomsday scenario, like
Right?
because if that does happen, which it will, like they're already starting to plan for it happening by pivoting their economies. Man, they got to do that ASAP because it would be a doomsday scenario if all these countries that are so used to being extraordinarily wealthy are overnight extraordinarily poor. That's where, like, yeah, doomsday scenarios happen. Like, it's not good. Mass
Yeah.
unrest of a level that's like, yeah,
I
it's not
mean,
good.
I'm just hoping that it does what it's been doing, because it's been doing the same thing for a while, where it just incrementally gets a little scarier, a little more dystopian, but then a lot more people climb just one more rung up on the ladder. And
Mhm.
it's like, we're so fucking close to bringing people that are on the dirt rung of the ladder up onto the ladder. We haven't quite gotten there yet. People are still fighting about crazy shit. because there's energy scarcity, because there's a lack of something in places. And like,
This
man,
is have you followed the Pakistan India conflict right
yeah,
now? I mean, like Kashmir is partly so insanely important because if India ever got control of Kashmir, they could just flip off the water supply to Pakistan because like the water flows from China to Kashmir to Pakistan, and if India controlled that, and if they had a reason to, they could just turn off the water. No more
right.
water, there's no more Pakistan. So it's civilizationally ending for them if India does ever control that. So yeah, I mean there's so much at stake with exactly what you're saying, like energy and resources.
I can't remember who said it, but there was somebody who, and their theory was that there really isn't a lot of intelligent life in the universe because at some level it always destroys itself. And it's like, you know, as we're approaching this taller part of the curve, I think you see our civilization stepping over these spike pits. You know, like, and as we get older, I think, and I've experienced more of these like precipice situations where everybody goes, whoa, you know, like one wrong move, and you see the house of cardsness of it all. And
I was just thinking about this today. There's got to be so much life out in the world. I actually didn't realize this so much until like today. Like I was eating breakfast and like looking up,
yeah,
like, okay, what's a galaxy? Wait, how many galaxies are there? What? And
yeah,
like, dude, okay, this blew my mind. You know, we live in the Milky Way galaxy. Um, guess how many solar systems there are in the Milky Way galaxy?
trillions.
I want to knock this at the wrong, so I'm Googling it. The estimate range is tens of billions to perhaps 100 billion. Okay,
Damn,
so that's just our little, Milky Way galaxy. Guess how many galaxies there are?
200 billion.
Okay, this is where it gets crazy. Up to 2 trillion.
Damn,
The low end of
crazy.
galaxies is 200 billion. That's the low
That's
estimate. The high is 2 trillion. And this is what is observable from Earth. Earth as a center of all the shit.
I want so
Observable is 2
bad.
trillion. So like think about that. That's what's observable. That's like that means that there's more. We just can't observe it. So infinite galaxies? Like
I,
possibly like that, like 2 trillion is effectively infinite already, but like even that, like that's like, and this is like the one universe, not to mention like what if there are multiverses, like dude, there's so much life out there, it's insane. There has to be when we're talking about numbers like that.
I want to so bad. Like, my real prognostication for the next 50 years is like, I really hope we just kind of gently step over these weird obstacles to not totally imploding and destroying ourselves, and get to the
I know,
point
me too, Devin,
where
I know.
these where and get
Yes.
to the point where we get some kind of deeper insight into how to peer into the vastness of space and actually see something, because it is part of, I will be so disappointed if in 35 years we're still looking at like Hubble type, telescopic images, and we don't figure out someone doesn't come say hi, you know
Mhm.
come on, man, say hi.
Yeah.
We see you. We see you lurking around all over the place. You got to just drop in, say hi. We won't freak out. We'll freak out.
I feel
But
like
no,
every morning at breakfast, everyone should do what I did just inadvertently, randomly this morning, and peek into the numbers of like, what is a galaxy? What's a solar
yeah,
system? And then like,
yeah,
oh, how many of these are there? And then like orient yourself. Like this is like the 2 minute meditation we should all do every day. Because again, like going back to India and Pakistan, it's so bummed me out this week, this story. It's like, do you know what it is? Like, yeah, sure, resources, et cetera, yada yada, energy, et cetera. It's like Hindus versus Muslims. That's why the lines were drawn where they were. That's why, like, when that line was drawn, there were hundreds of thousands of people, or at least tens of thousands of people slaughtered overnight on both sides because of some shitty, like, made up fictitious religious bullshit. Dude, meditate on the galaxies, guys. You'll like those religious like fairy tales you tell yourself that are so important. It goes away very quickly. Like I promise you.
Yeah, well, which
Made up
brings
lines on your silly little planet because of like the religion that your parents told you is true. God, it's depressing.
which brings me around to my perennial point when it comes to talking about aliens, which is why I think they keep visiting us in the first place, which is that we have this insane preoccupation with baked bread products.
Yep. I
And
know this
dude,
theory. I love it.
I swear to God, they come here for the rock and roll and the pastries, man. They're preserving us. They're like very carefully shepherding us from, like they're like cutting off the Moscow like Trump call right at just the right
Yeah.
moment so that they can preserve like our psychotic fixation on sweets
Yeah.
and great tunes. Or like a heritage site where we've got to be like a universal heritage site, and they're the people that come here and they get caught, they're like the tourists that get caught like touching the like monument. Like they're from some backwater ass part of the universe. They're like, let's go to Earth, let's go see they we gotta go get the pastries.
I love this idea that humanity's contribution to the universe isn't like physics
Oh
or your
Lord,
religious insight or philosophy. It's like
no.
donuts.
Yes, yes, yes.
I love that theory. It's very good.
Thousands of years of royal families competing with one another to see who could make the best pastry. Surely no civilization would squander so many generations building so much pointless shit.
Same with the rock and roll. It took all tons of innovation and tons of yep. That's the best we got.